McHi alum and current Stephen of Austin, Josh McGowen, joining us here today. Josh, what's going on?
Hey man, just trying to stay in shape, finishing out school, graduate, just ready to get back on the field. Everything's changed a lot with all this coronavirus going on. So, but hey, I'm doing good, just hanging in there.
Wait, what have you been up to lately? I mean, I know, now we're kind of getting into the part where businesses are reopening, people are kind of starting to try and get back to some normalcy, but what did you do in this whole, like, you can call quarantine time when we were ordered to stay home?
Really, I just been kind of working out and just handling all my school. A lot of schools transitioned to going into the online format, which for me wasn't really too difficult. A lot of my classes were already online. So I really just been getting focused on school, getting ready to graduate here May 8th. And as far as work, my job, they closed down. So she was going to close down for a little while, getting ready to open up here again sometime in May. So I've just been kind of doing my thing, making sure I'm staying in shape, doing a lot of kind of like body weight stuff. I was in San Antonio, my brother, we don't have like a weight rack or anything. All the gyms closed down. So I was really doing a lot of just running and trying to stay in shape and, not gain a bunch of weight, just eating.
So when you were in school and when they closed schools and when they everything started getting shut down, what'd you do first? Did you go back home or did you go to San Antonio, or what was that like?
Yeah, so the way it happened for us, we were on spring break, and then I was in San Antonio for that, and I came back, and they were telling us that chances are we'll probably close down the school, and they were thinking of trying to figure out some way to have the athletes there so we can kind of finish out our spring stuff. Luckily for us, we were one of the first teams in the country to start spring ball, so we got all of our practices in, everything other than our actual spring game, and that was it. And so they told us that we were just going to go home, and that we just kind of had to be responsible and be young men and kind of do our own thing. But nothing really, I mean, it impacted us kind of heavy, but the fact that we were able to get like a lot of our spring practices and just not have the spring game was really beneficial for all of us. But other than that, we just kind of been doing our own thing. Not much really changed. They just kind of told us go home and stay home, and we'll let you know when to come back. So that's how things have been going so far.
Definitely. Well, that's the first that, because the guests we've had on here before, their spring activities were canceled, specifically in college where spring ball, they were left with a lot of uncertainty. So that's good for you guys. So you've adjusted to the online courses, and, has your coaches or strength and conditioning coaches reached out to you as far as what they want you to do to keep in shape, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I got starting with academics. For me, I've had online classes throughout my whole college career. So trying to transition from an in-class setting to just doing online, it wasn't too bad. It was actually really easy for me. It was just a more of actually setting aside time to get through lectures online and stuff like that. And like how we're doing now with Zoom, everyone's been doing that. We have Zoom meetings for position meetings. We have Zoom team meetings, and so we'll do that for class, and that was not too bad. And the transition for strength and conditioning, what we have to do is we have to record some of our workout and send it to our strength and conditioning coach, and he'll give us feedback of whether it's hey, like do this and then include this next time, or you need to do this or don't do that. Just making sure that we're practicing safe habits and not just kind of out here not doing something that we can't do correctly. So that's how it's been for us in the strength and conditioning program. And he's also sent out workouts, like workout schedules, like they would when most athletes kind of go home for the Christmas break. They'll send out like a little pamphlet telling you like, hey, like this is what you need to do, and he'll give you like your weights and stuff. So our coach, Coach Stoner, he gave us a two-sided one, and one is where you have equipment, and then the other one is where it's just all body weight stuff. So a lot of people who don't have equipment can do all the body weight movement and still keep that strength. But for us, the one thing that we were main focusing on was like speed. So we have a lot of agility stuff that we've been doing, because that's always the first thing to go. That muscular strength will stay there, but it's that speed that goes away quick. So he gave us a workout, just like a training program that has everything to do with conditioning, and then just body weight movement stuff if you don't have like weights at home, or if you just have dumbbells and stuff. So different kind of things like that. And that's kind of how the process has been going for us with us as far as athletics, and then also incorporating academics. So
Definitely. So just a little while ago, we were talking about how you're entering your fifth year there at SFA. It's been a good while. You had your signing day with Cody, right, Rodriguez?
yeah, Cody and I both signed together.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that. That just came to mind. Let's go back a couple years and when you signed, and the Josh McGowen then and the Josh McGowen you are now. Well, what has been the biggest difference you've seen in your growth, not only as an athlete but as a student?
Oh man. Uh, for me, I guess the biggest change was finally getting into a weight program. That's the biggest thing, and that's always the first thing that I tell like when recruits come in. Like when you come in, you're gonna get into a weight program, and it's gonna change everything completely. Like I have it pulled up right now. For my freshman year, I came in at 190. I got into the weight program, hit 214, and then continuing on with the different coaches and the different staff coming in, I got up to 220, and that's where I'm at now. So going back to high school, I was a track guy. That's all I was doing. I was quick on my feet. And then now I have this weight on my shoulders. So I'm transitioning from being more like a speed back into kind of an overall build, just having that speed and having that power. And that was kind of the biggest thing that really changed for me, was just having to get into a weight program. Uh, During high school, I was always, football was done. I would get right into track, and then I would start summer track, with UTSA and all that other kind of stuff. And then for academics, it was kind of much the same thing. When you're in high school, academics is just as important as it is when you're in college. When you're in high school, it's more of just like, hey, you got to have that GPA to qualify in order to get like a scholarship or to just be eligible to play. And it's the same thing when you get into college. When you get in college, you got to have that 2.0 or better. But for us, we keep it at like 2.5. And it's the same thing. Just that GPA is going to play an effect into, someday getting a job. So not much has really changed as far as academics. The same thing. You got to stay on top of your grind and make sure you're doing what you got to do in order to play. Not only that, but different schools will go on a kind of like a point system, and you have to have a certain amount of points within like a certain range of time. And McNeese, they didn't make that point standard, so right now they're not able to play in kind of like postseason games. Like they're not gonna be able to make playoffs. They could be winning the conference and say they win conference, but they can't go in the playoffs because they didn't have that point range system. So that's kind of the thing. You got to stay on top of your academics, and it's the same thing when you're in high school. So not much has really changed.
And on the field, how has it been for you there at SFA? I'm sure there was a lot of adjustments, and you're still playing the running back position, correct?
Yeah, still playing running back. The only thing that really changed for me a lot was, I came in my freshman year with one coaching staff, and then after that, we got a new coaching staff, and then after that, a new one, and then finally, this is the longest that I've had the same position coach and the same head coach. So every year that I've been in college, I've had a new coach, a new head coach, different playbook. And for me right now, understanding the playbook and understanding what is my assignment and understanding the offensive line assignment. This is the first time that we've ever gone through, and when we're in meetings, we go over what the offensive line has too, as well as with running back. So we know where everything's happening. We know route concepts with the receivers. And so being on the field, it just really, calls for a lot of maturity, especially when you come in your freshman year having to learn the playbook. I didn't pick up on it as quick as the other running back, so I redshirted. And then after that, I picked up on it. I was hitting the playbook like as if I was hitting books to make sure I have that GPA and make sure that I can get on the field and play. Things have been going good though for us on the field. We're getting ready to have our first game coming up soon. Hopefully we can get back and get this summer ball going. Like I said, we already did all of our spring stuff, and we were doing spring ball. Everybody was looking good. We got transfers that are coming in, returning players, and even the guys who graduated and they were seniors, they came out there and made sure that things were going good for us. And the team's looking real good. With the new coaching staff that we had with Coach Carthel, they came in and we had a young team, like a real young team, and to do what we did and to be as close as we were in games. If you look, a lot of our games that we lost was in the fourth quarter. We were able to play first quarter through the third, but we weren't able to finish. And so that was big for us. And, that's kind of what we go through in practice, and making sure that we're finishing the games. But other than that, things have been going really good for us on the field. And I'm excited to see what, the team's going to bring, this upcoming fall.
What have been some maybe standout moments for you that have stood out these last couple of years for you on the field?
So for me, it would be this last season against Northwestern. I had 158 rushing yards and 1 TD. We got Chief Cato back, and that's the largest traveling trophy there is. So for that would be a standout moment. And then, I'd probably say this season prior to that against Houston Baptist. That was another 100 rushing yard game, and that was my first one in my college career. So I'd say those two games have kind of been like the standout moment for me. But I think the biggest thing that I've kind of felt been a standout moment for me is my growth and development as a more of a power back. Running between the A gap and the B gap, and not bouncing it out as much as I would in high school. So for me, I would say any of those runs where I'm kind of just following my tackler or my puller, I'd say that's kind of like the standout moment for me, just lowering my shoulder and just running 2 or 3 guys over and not being pulled to the ground. One of my old coaches in high school used to always tell me, not one person can bring you down. So I've had that mindset since I was in high school. Not one guy can bring me down. It's always going to be 2 or 3 guys. And if you ask some of the guys that are on the team now, they'll tell you the same thing. I'm not going to go down easy. So I would say running between the tackles is kind of something that I would take into pride. And it's just any of those runs really, in those runs that are equivalent to 3 to more yards, So I would say that really, those 200-yard games, and then just every run that I get in between the tackles.
The Battle of the Piney Woods. I think it's a very underrated rivalry in the state of Texas. When you get you guys and Sam Houston hooking up, talk about that rivalry.
Man, it's a great experience. It really is. Before the game, you get there and you walk through the Texan Stadium, NRG Stadium, and you're just like, man. Not only that, but you're just like JJ Watt played here, Deshaun Watson, and all of them. You're just like, it's crazy to be here, to be able to play, and you see all their names on the side of the rim of the area, and it's just crazy to be able to play in the NFL stadium. And then not only that, but like SFA and Sam Houston, that's a big rival. It got so bad that we decided to move it into an NFL stadium, not playing at each other's campuses or anything like that. But that game is crazy. It's wild. Hopefully this year, one of our main goals is to win that game. Every year that I've been in college and that I've played in that game, other than my redshirt year, we've lost. And that game right there, when you lose it, it hits big, it hits hard. So that rival right there is just that's something different. It hits different when that game comes during practice week. It's Sam Houston. We got to win. So when you're practicing, you don't see your teammates on the other side. You see Sam Houston, and you just kind of practicing as hard as you can, just doing what you got to do, and just fighting through the pain no matter what. But that's a big game for us, and I'm excited for this upcoming season.
Was it 2 years ago or a year ago? I might be wrong, but did you guys play at Compass Stadium in Houston, where the Dynamo play?
No, I don't. We've never played there.
No, okay, because I remember it might have been a different sport. Because I remember I was in Houston around October. I was actually at an Astros game, and I remember seeing the promos that Stephen F. Austin and Sam Houston were playing. There might have been another sport then maybe, because I remember the Piney Woods. I remember a lot of people.
Nah, most of any team that we've ever played in the Houston area was just Houston Baptist, and we'd play them at their home field, and Sam Houston at NRG Stadium. So those are the only 2 times that we've ever really played in Houston like that.
So let's talk a little bit about your high school days. You came on the scene those couple years, and I think one of the games I did was one of your breakout games when I don't remember who it was against, but it was a home game, and everyone started to kind of learn the name Josh McGowen, and you and Jacob Youngblood was your quarterback at the time. You guys had a little bit of a tandem going, and Coach Brewer, he was still there at McHi, and Gunnar Henderson, and just talk about those high school days that you had, and just the relationships you had and how good you guys were.
So the game it was Mission. It was against Mission, and it's funny because that whole game is posted on YouTube, and so sometimes when I'm struggling in now with stuff, I'll watch those games and kind of just remind myself, who I am, and that's what I do. And so in high school was it was fun. It was always fun. Every game, I was just beyond excited, ready to play, and especially with Caleb, that's that was. Oh man, that was my best friend in high school. We did everything together. Coach Bechtold would call us salt and pepper. So we would just that was my boy. And whenever it was time to play, it was game time. And moving in, having to figure out where I was going to go to school. I went to different schools. I went to Sherryland, and I talked with McHi, and a lot of people thought I was going to go to Memorial for the longest, but you know, they had Trevor, and I wasn't gonna be a backup to anybody, so I decided to go to McHi. And once we got into McHi, it was just time to get going. And high school was just fun. That was the thing, you know. I enjoyed it. Every time I stepped on the field, I wasn't going out there to necessarily impress the college coaches. I was just going out there to just have fun and enjoy high school while I still can. Because now I look back on it and I'm just like I wish I can go back and like redo it all. But high school was fun, and then playing with like the guys, Caleb and Gunner. And when I first got there, you know, they had I guess it's like the summer 7-on-7 tournaments, and they'll like go. So we were doing that, and the guys they're like, hey, like you're coming to McHi, like let's get you out here. And so I went, and you know, we stayed at Gunner's house with his parents. It was me, Caleb, Gunner, Ruben, and then Angel. All of us, we were all together, just hanging out, doing our thing. 7-on-7 came, and that was the first time that I've ever played defense. Other than that, I had never played defense. So they put me on defense, and I was just doing what I had to do. But then I guess that transition to, you know, when you look at the Mission game, you know, I had a pick six that game. So I guess it helped out a little bit. But high school was just, it was fun. Like those are some of the best moments that I've ever had in football. And not only football, but just in track too. So high school was definitely fun.
That Mission, so it was Mission. Was that where you had the pick six, the punt return for a touchdown?
Yeah. So I had a pick six,
Yeah.
a kickoff return, had a reception for a touchdown, and I had maybe like 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. I can't remember the actual stats, but yeah, it was definitely a Mission game.
Yeah, because I remember my friend Scott and I, when we were calling the game, we're like, if he was on our fantasy team, if high school football had fantasy numbers.
Yeah, that was the funnest game for me. That was the fun game that I've ever played in, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, and at the time, you know, you guys, McCallum Memorial, and of course, you know, you and Trevor, you know, those were fun things to watch, you know, and since then we really haven't seen 2 running backs like you guys go head to head like that, let alone, you know, in the city of McAllen. So just talk about that and being able to go up against a guy like Trevor going up against a guy like you. And then I know you guys also took it to the track as well.
Yeah, so yeah, we did take it. But, for me, I saw Trevor as I didn't see him as an enemy, and I feel like a lot of people thought that's how I looked at Trevor, but I saw him kind of like as a standard, you know, as someone that not only that I want to be like, but someone that I wanted to surpass. And for him, I don't know how he looked at me, but I know that, you know, coming in, moving into McAllen, I looked up Trevor. You know, I watched his highlights. I looked up his stats. I saw offers that he had, and I knew when I moved in that people were going to compare me to him. So I knew that when I got there, I wanted to be side by side where he was at. You know, if Trevor had a game where he got 200 plus rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, hey, this next game I got to somehow get 300 plus rushing yards or somehow surpass what he's saying or what he's doing. That way, when people hear his name, they'll not only think of him, but they'll think of me too. And so that was kind of the goal for me. Every game was just whatever he gets, I got to somehow get close to it or I got to top it. And so he was always that standard for me. Like I set him up there on the bar, not only to like achieve what he's achieving, but to just surpass him. And, you know, like some of the games I did, some of those games I didn't, but I didn't let that slow me down. And then it was just an honor to be able to play with somebody who, you know, was able to go to the FBS level and play at Stanford, you know. And so it was definitely an honor to play against him. And then once we got into the track senior, you know, that's where I decided I had to take over. I had to take the number 1 spot in that one. But it was great to go up against him. You know, he's a good guy. He's smart, talented, and you know, I wish the best for him and wherever he goes. He into the transfer portal, but and I think him and we did a good job with kind of setting an example and being role models for the community, not only just in, you know, the McAllen area, but just like anywhere in the south side of the valley. Just, you know, setting a goal for people, not to be like us, but to want to be better than us. And like that's what I tell kids all the time. They're always like telling me, like, we want to be like you. Like I want to set your time. Like don't set yourself to want to be just like me. Always want to surpass someone because you never want to be like them. You always want to set a name for yourself. And so I think that's something that Trevor and I did really well, was just kind of setting the bar for a lot of people and pushing them to want to be better than us.
Definitely. We're joined by McAllen High alum and SFA running back Josh McGowen. You know, talking about McAllen and the city and the school district, We were talking earlier that we're watching Aaron Nixon and the things he did. He's going to be going to Texas. Lexi Gonzalez, extremely good soccer player, volleyball player. Alex Rodriguez, he was just on our show last week. He's going to Duke to run track. And, just the athletes that McAllen High is continuing to pump through their program. Let's talk about Alex for a little bit. I'm not sure if you're too familiar with him, but
I know a little bit about him. Like we said, I'm an old head. I graduated high school in 2016, but I've heard a little bit about him. I know that he was going to Duke for track, and that already says a lot about him. Duke not only is a good athletic program, but they're good as far as academic wise. When I was a sophomore in high school and I was living in North Carolina, I was getting recruited by Duke. But the thing is, I didn't have the grades at the time, and so for him to be able to go there, that's already saying much about him. Not only the fact that he is a great athlete, but he's a responsible young man. And he won't. I don't think he's the only one from McHi that's at Duke. I think we have another athlete. I think her name was Hannah Kelly. I think that's her name. I'm not really too sure, but I know she goes to Duke too. And so that's great for him. And I've seen some of the times that he's posted, and I know he's a hard worker. Coach Bechtol's talking to me about him, but I haven't heard much from him. I haven't personally been able to talk to him or anything like that. But I know that if he comes from McHi and he runs track and he's going to Duke, I know he a dog. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, definitely. And I know he said that when he was in junior high, he would hear of your name, and because I mentioned your name to him, he's like, "Oh, yeah," like he kind of like starstruck a little bit. He's like, "I was in junior high, and I would see a little bit of him, and I would watch him." And he said he did get to run a little bit with Gunner his freshman year. So there's definitely a lot of ties there with McHi. Looking at sports as a whole, what do you miss most about it? Just being a sports fan.
I just kind of miss being out there and just being with the different schools and getting to know other people and being able to kind of just not be like the center of the stage, but just kind of just give that spark to the crowd, breaking off a long run and you can hear the crowd in the background, or when you're running track and you kind of split the difference between the people when you take off, just hearing the crowd, that was the biggest thing, and getting that support from the fans. And you get the same thing when you're in college, but when you get into college, every dude on the team was that guy Friday night or was that guy on the track. And so when you're in high school, it's different. There's just a big difference between when the crowd is cheering you on and then cheering another team on, the whole team, and that's not to say that I'm trying to be selfish or anything or take apart from other people that were on the team, but it's just like when you hear that crowd just roar after you break up a run or you catch the ball, it's different than when you're in college. When you're in college, you got everybody, even the people who are tailgating, who are probably just cheering just to cheer. It's just different hearing the crowd from when you're in high school to when you're in college. That's the one thing that I miss the most, and I just miss being on the track. That's the one thing I miss the most. Coming in, I thought I was going to be able to run track and play football. My head coach at the time frame said that that's not the route that he wanted to go, and at that point, I decided it was time to hang up the track spikes. So I really miss being on the track. That's kind of something that took me a little while to get over. But I miss running track for sure. That's the number one thing that I miss.
You an NBA guy, NFL guy, NBA, NMLB, or anything like that?
Not really. I'll watch pro football sometimes, but it's not a matter of just kind of like something that I want to do. I'd rather be doing it than watching. That's how I've always been. I have a hard time with sitting down and watching sports, but I'd rather just go and do it myself. And it's the same thing with just everything with basketball. Like I'm like, oh, okay, like he did this, but I'm gonna go outside and recreate it myself and do it until I can actually do it. Like I have a hard time sitting there and actually watching a full game. But I'm a Cowboys fan, so whenever the Cowboys play, I try to watch the whole game. But it's just other than that, like I miss everything about being in that situation, being in the position. Like I said, I have a hard time just sitting there watching the full game or just watching the game. Like I can't do it. It just, my attention span on it is just like, man, like I got something else I got to go do. So missing the actual sports of watching it, not so much, but actually being in that situation more than anything.
CeeDee Lamb, you like the first round pick by the Cowboys?
Most definitely, most definitely. I was beyond happy about that. CeeDee Lamb, that dude's a dog, man. He's a different breed. He's just talented, man. I've watched some of the games that he's played on TV, just highlights and stuff that he's done, and he's a different breed. He works hard, and coming from Oklahoma, I know he's going to bring a lot to the Cowboys. But he's good. He's a good dude.
Right before we go, Josh, you binge watching anything, or you're a gamer at all, or anything like that?
I'll play 2K with my brother every once in a while, but I've been watching Ozark on Netflix, and then there's another show that I was watching. I can't remember the name of it right now, but Ozark definitely. That's a good show right there. I started it and I got into like season 2 in like 2 days or something like that.
Wow.
So definitely
Season
into.
3? You started season 3 yet?
No, I haven't started season 3 yet.
It's very good. I've been watching that show since it came out, and season 3 came out. It's funny because season 3 came out like as soon as like everyone went into quarantine. Mm-hmm. So I'm not the kind of binge watcher to where I'll binge watch through those shows in maybe a couple days or a week. But for that show, it took me a couple of days to watch. That's how good it was.
Really, I have to finish it. I was gonna finish it, but I was like, you know what, like let me take a break. Let me watch something else. But since it's that good, I've heard a lot of people tell me that season 3 kind of leaves you shocked. And so I figured I might as well just go ahead and watch it.
Season 3 was very good. I just recently watched Waco too. If you get a chance.
I've seen it on there, but I haven't actually watched it or anything.
Yeah, it's only 6 episodes.
Only 6? Okay.
Did you watch the TV show Friday Night Lights?
I didn't watch the TV show. I watched the movie a lot though. I probably watch the movie like 4 times a day.
Because the TV show, the guy who plays Tim Riggins, he's in the show Waco, and I was making a joke with some of the football coaches I was talking to. I was like, hey, like in case you haven't wondered what happened to Tim Riggins after Friday Night Lights, he's now a cult leader in Waco. It's just different characters, and it's like, wow, I didn't know that guy could play that kind of role. But when you get a chance, check it out.
All right, I'll have to check it out for sure.
Definitely. Any shout outs you want to give to your family, your friends, coaches maybe watching?
I mean, like always, if you watch any of my interviews, big shout out to my parents. They have done everything in this world to make sure that I've gotten into the spot that I am in today. Also, shout out to all of the McHi staff for taking me in and bringing me home and allowing me to develop as a young man and as a student athlete there. And just shout out to all of them, and big shout out to all the people who are watching this, as far as just fans or anybody who just wants advice. Don't be afraid to reach out to me. I will gladly help anybody. But just a big shout out to the McAllen community just for accepting me and allowing me to just grow and call McAllen home. So that's all I got.
Definitely. Our second guest of the day, Josh McGowen, McAllen High alum, and currently at Stephen F. Austin. He's getting ready for his your final year.
Yep, final year. To be the final season on the field, getting ready to start master's program and just kind of go out from there.
Definitely. So Josh, thanks for joining us, man. It's good catching up. Be safe with your travels. You're going to be traveling a little bit later, so safe with your travels. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. No problem.
All right. Thank you, guys.